What would you do if you walked into a place you built with your own hands, only to be told you didn't belong there? Would you stay silent, or would you remind them who really signs their paychecks? This isn't just a story about racism, pride, or power. It's about respect. Because sometimes people forget that the person they're looking down on might actually be standing far above them. Today's story begins with a woman who turned struggle into empire, and employees who made one mistake they'd never forget. By the time they realized who she was, it was too late. 9 minutes later, she would make a decision that changed their lives forever. So, what really happened inside that hotel lobby? Let's go back to the beginning. Her name was Danielle Carter, a self-made entrepreneur who had built one of the most elegant boutique hotels in Atlanta. She wasn't born into privilege. She started with a vision, 2 part-time jobs, and a belief that luxury doesn't come from money. It comes from experience. Every inch of the Carter Grand Hotel reflected her soul. The marble floors, the jazz-filled lobby, the scent of magnolia that drifted through the halls. She didn't just create a business, she created an experience. But on that cloudy Friday afternoon, the place that once felt like home turned into something else. Danielle had been away for weeks negotiating a franchise deal. She wanted to test how her new managers were handling the property. So she arrived quietly, dressed simply. Jeans, jacket, and a travel bag. No entourage, no name tag, just an unannounced visit. She expected warm hospitality. Instead, she got glares. At the front desk, 2 employees whispered, exchanged looks, and one muttered, "Guests like her shouldn't even be walking in here." Danielle froze. She didn't correct them. Not yet. Because sometimes, the best lessons come when you let people show you who they are. As she waited in the lobby, her mind replayed every training session, every speech she'd given about respect and equality. And all she could think was, how did my own hotel become this? She decided to stay silent for now. It started small. The front desk ignored her. Then a waiter approached and asked if she was lost. When she said she was waiting for a room, the tone shifted. The manager appeared, a tall man named Rick, new to the property. Danielle had hired him 6 months earlier through recommendation. He didn't recognize her. "Mom, I'm afraid we can't have non-guests lingering in the lobby," he said flatly. Danielle raised an eyebrow. Non-guests. She asked to see the booking list. He refused. She asked to speak to the general manager. He was the general manager. Then came the words that flipped the air cold. "Please leave, or I'll have security escort you out." But guests turned their heads. The pianist stopped mid-note. Danielle stood there, calm, quiet, processing. Was this her hotel? The one built to welcome every background, every story, now kicking people out based on assumption and bias. Security arrived. They didn't ask questions. Within minutes, Danielle was escorted to the sidewalk, her travel bag in hand. 9 minutes. That's all it took for her to go from owner to outsider. And yet, she smiled. Because the moment she stepped outside, her assistant, who'd been parked nearby, handed her a tablet. On the screen lived footage from the lobby cameras. Every word, every action, recorded. Danielle said nothing. She simply walked to the car, opened her laptop, and logged into the hotel management system. Within moments, she was in control again. Access codes, payroll, authorization privileges. Inside, the staff still laughed, until their screens froze. Then came the intercom tone. A calm voice filled the hotel lobby. "This is Danielle Carter, the CEO and owner of the Carter Grand. I suggest everyone gather in the lobby immediately." A silence. Then panic. The elevator doors opened, and Danielle walked back in, not as a guest, but as the woman who owned the building. Every employee's face drained of color. Rick tried to speak, but Danielle raised a hand. "I gave you this place to lead with kindness," she said softly. "And you turned it into a place of exclusion." She walked past the desk, each step echoing on the marble. "I don't need to remind anyone what this hotel stands for, but I will remind you who you work for." Then came the quietest, most devastating sentence of all. "You're all dismissed," effective immediately. The staff stood frozen. Security lowered their heads. Guests began applauding. In that moment, the balance of power flipped, not out of rage, but out of justice. Danielle turned to the cameras and spoke one final line for everyone watching online later. Respect is free to give and very expensive to lose. The story of that 9-minute humiliation spread across the city by the next morning. Some called her harsh, others called it leadership. But Danielle didn't act out of vengeance. She acted out of principle. She rehired only those who had treated guests with grace, promoted the housekeeper who'd once defended her, and launched a diversity and empathy program across all her franchises. Months later, she was invited to speak at a leadership summit. Her talk was titled, "When They Forget Who You Are, Remind Them Who You've Become." She ended with a question that silenced the entire room. How many people have we judged before we even asked their name? Because in the end, this story wasn't about power, money, or control. It was about something far deeper: dignity. And in those 9 minutes, Danielle Carter didn't just reclaim her hotel. She reminded everyone watching that true leadership isn't about commanding respect. It's about embodying it.